What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. I'm super excited you're here because we've got a super special guest tonight. Craig Goldstein, the editor-in-chief of Baseball Prospectus, also a Dodger fan, is going to join us tonight. And I'm really excited. He's got a lot of good information about the Dodgers, a lot of good opinions. Obviously, he's a super well-educated guy when it comes to the numbers and that kind of thing. So I'm really excited to have him joining us. I want to throw one disclaimer out here before we start, and that is this interview was actually much longer than what you're going to get to see. Unfortunately, I screwed up some tech stuff on my side. So apologies to you, apologies to Craig. We basically got the back end of this interview. We did some rapid fire questions with him that are really good. So I appreciate you joining us. Again, this is DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. And here's my interview with Craig Goldstein, the editor-in-chief of Baseball Prospectus.
I really try not to be like overly emotional in responding to things like a playoff series or anything like that, and how it reflects on the manager. The Juan Soto and Anthony Rendon home runs put me over an edge in 2019 because, and you can go check my tweets, I tweeted about it 2 days beforehand. I said he's going to bring in Roberts at a crucial moment. I mean, not Roberts. He's going to bring Kershaw at a crucial moment. And like, this is how it's going to go. And it's just the worst part of me saying that is like, I didn't have special insight. It was all so obvious that he was going to do it. It was so obvious that he was going to do it that I could say it 2 days in advance. And again, like, that was not a special prognostication. I'm certain many of your viewers and listeners had the same exact thought, right? So I am not special in that regard. But the fact that we could all know it was coming made it so infuriating. And I was like, I'm done with him. I don't think you can bring him back. I like, and it's not just that he did it, right, and that it happened. It's that, and it's not just that he did it and it happened and it was predictable. It's that it's the exact same thing he'd been doing for years. And if you're not going to learn from your mistakes, why are you here? And I think he's a good manager. I think he's a good manager, especially over the course of a regular season. I don't think he has a special weakness in the playoffs. I think it's the same weakness in the playoffs. But if he's not going to learn from them, what are we doing here? And so I was done. And frankly, like, the first part of the playoffs didn't reassure me in 2020 that he had learned anything. I still don't think he's learned anything. I think generally, like, he's a good manager who, given enough talent, will win you and maybe multiple World Series. And I think he's pretty good in the clubhouse. I mean, we've been Dodgers fans a long time. You remember all the clubhouse shit that came out from, excuse my language, from Joe Torre, who was supposed to be a good clubhouse manager, and Don Mattingly tightened it up a little bit, but not as much. You really, this is a lot of stars, a lot of personalities, and you don't really hear anything in terms of the way that we did back when Torre was running it, when Kemp was in town. Although even when Matt Kemp was back in town, you didn't quite hear it. It wasn't the same kind of stuff. So I do think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But I guess I just like, I'm tired of watching the same things play out over and over, and it didn't kill him this time. But I would argue that given the talent on the Dodgers, another person could also succeed, right? And maybe would succeed more often in the playoffs. And frankly, given the talent on the Dodgers, getting to the playoffs is not as much the hard part. And so I think, yeah, I mean, look, you generally don't fire a guy right after he wins the World Series, whatever. So I'm not expecting that. But do I think he's necessarily the best guy for the job? I don't know. What I said during the playoffs was I thought he was kind of, so I saw two guys who had a lot of success in the playoffs facing each other in terms of managers in the ALCS, Kevin Cash and Dusty Baker. And they're very different managers. We talked about Kevin Cash already. And I thought he did a really good job. Dusty Baker, I absolutely adore. I got to see him a lot when he was in DC, which is, again, where I am. I think he's just an incredible manager, and I think he does it. I don't think he ignores data, but he obviously doesn't rely on it to the same extent others do. And you saw him go out in that big moment to Zach Greinke and leave him in the game after talking to the catcher, Maldonado. And after the game, Greinke said, to see him, like, to have that, like, visual show of faith was something he wasn't used to in Houston, which again will tell you something a little bit about how they operate, which is probably closer to the way Tampa Bay operates. But so they're two different models, and I think that Roberts was trying to be both of them and not really succeeding at being either of them. He brings Pedro Baez into these big moments time after time. He goes back to him the next night, and it's like that's the Dusty Baker move, right? Show of faith. But you're also like, but that's not the move. Like, that's not even the move Dusty Baker would do.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to be like that. And then he, the way that they, and I don't put it only on him. I think this is on the front office too. But the way that they did the bullpen games was infuriating to me. It made no sense to me that the way that they used Dustin May, all of that kind of stuff. And again, I don't put that only on him, but that to me was like trying to be like Kevin Cash and also not pulling it off.
Yeah.
So I think he was trying to thread a needle and not really succeeding at doing it. And I just think if they want a guy like Kevin Cash, they should go find a guy like Kevin Cash. I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Dusty. And if they want that, they should just go do that. The in-between thing just, I don't know, doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. And I don't think you're alone. I mean, it's funny because I think Urias in a lot of ways sort of bailed Dave Roberts out because it was sort of like he put him in a spot where he couldn't possibly screw that up. Like anything short of leaving him in at any point in Game 7 of the NLCS or Game 6 of the World Series. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, I think every Dodger fan was worried about what was coming after Urias in Game 6 of the World Series, whether it was Jansen, whether it was Kershaw. Either way, it wasn't going to be great.
And look, some of that is not Dave Roberts' fault, right? Like there's nowhere, that was their bullpen. It was a very flat bullpen, not a lot of gaps between the guys, but also no one you trust implicitly at this stage. But, going to Urias on 2 days rest, I give him credit for that. And to let him throw the number of pitches he threw on 2 days rest, I give him credit for that, to know the roster. But what drives me nuts in that, to bring Urias up is that, and again, this might be the front office. So again, I'm not trying to pin that all on Dave, is that if you looked at the profiles of the three guys that they had to choose two starters from, there's May, there's Gonsolin, and there's Urias. I would argue May was the worst one to make a reliever because his biggest strength is throwing 97 to 99 for 5+ innings and being hard to square up. And he doesn't miss that many bats, but he's hard to square up. And I understand the idea being that if you don't miss that many bats and you throw for 5 innings, you're going to get exposed. But that's just not been the experience that he's had. Whereas Gonsolin has a lower velocity that would play up in a bullpen role. And he also has a strikeout pitch in the splitter. He has a swing and miss pitch. So if you need to bring him into a game with a runner on or with runners on first and third or something like that, I think that plays a little bit better. And then you have Urias, who I think was actually the best present starters. So I don't mind them using him in that role, but also the most experience as a reliever and someone you can absolutely trust out of the bullpen in terms of low pulse, 3 pitches. He can pitch to guys on both sides with a 3-batter rule. That's a big deal. I don't see how you pick May as the guy to be the bullpen guy. And if you do pick him, all of a sudden say, we're throwing him against the other team's best hitters every time now.
Yeah.
That made no sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. You've given us a lot. Let me end with a handful of rapid fire questions. Feel free to be as quick as you want to on these. And we'll start. This is sort of a complicated one.
Clearly my strength.
It's all right. Dodger free agents. They've got a bunch of guys that are up for free agency. Who do you expect of the 2020 roster players to be back in 2021?
I do think they'll bring back Turner, but I think that's it after that. I don't think they're going to bring back Hernandez or China.
Okay. And is there a name out there in free agency that you would add if you were the Dodgers? Guy at the top of your list.
That's a good question. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, you can make a case for anyone at the top of the market, but I don't know. I mean, I would probably go look at the relief options. I think the popular name is Liam Hendricks. I think he'd be a good fit. I think you could go after Brad Hand, depending on how left-handed you're going to be. I obviously didn't say they were going to bring back Jake McGee, so you could go add another left-handed option. He was at $10 million. I was a little disappointed they didn't claim him. Because he would have replaced the amount of money Trinan earned. But those are the two guys I'd look at. I honestly think the rest of the team is pretty well set. I wouldn't be mad at them for adding. Look, if you want to go get George Springer and make the roster work, fine by me. It's not my money, but I don't think that they're going to do that.
The best Dodger relief pitcher in 2021 is who?
That's a great question. I think it'll be Gratterall.
Okay. So you're not worried about the low strikeout numbers with him.
I am worried about it, but I think there's an argument that he was potentially among the best relievers they had anyway, yeah, totally. And I think there's a chance he can refine that slider.
Fair enough. Okay, here's probably the hardest question I'm going to ask you. This is a question that my brother posed to me. The Dodgers have three big guys due up for free agency: Buehler, Bellinger, and Seager in different orders. How would you rank those three as far as which one you would most want to lock down forever? And you can answer this as a fan or as an analyst. I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, that's good. That is a tough one. If I'm choosing one, I think I might choose Buehler on both fronts, and that probably more as a fan front than as an analyst. Because you have to be worried about just pitchers.
Yeah.
They get hurt. They always get hurt. He was hurt a lot of this year. But God, his last start in the World Series was freaking immaculate.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was dominant with the blister, not knowing where his breaking ball was going, not knowing where the fastball was going half the time. I mean, that's just a special arm. And as much as I love Bellinger, I just think it's harder to find those number one guys.
Yeah.
Buehler is an ace when healthy, and when healthy is a big caveat for any pitcher. Yeah. But God, I don't know. It's hard for me to walk away from that. And I love Seager. I absolutely love Seager. But I don't know. I was the guy who proposed before this season that they should trade him for Francisco Lindor. So maybe I don't love him as much as I think I do.
Fair.
I don't know.
Fair.
I'm glad they didn't, by the way.
Yeah.
But I love Lindor. There's a wealth of shortstops right now. I mean, it's an incredibly deep position, and I just think the scarcity at the top of the market for starters and for good starters is, you look at the type of money Jake DeGrom gets at 30 plus, that kind of thing. God, I don't know. Lock in Walker Buehler while you have him.
Yeah.
But I would also caveat this. It's a good question to make someone choose one. They're the Dodgers. They should just keep them all, or spend as much as it takes to get players just as good.
Yeah.
So they should spend as much as they can to keep this nucleus together. I'm fine with that. But yeah, if I have to choose one, I think it would be Buehler.
I'm with you for all the reasons you mentioned. I mean, I think there's all three of them have some form of a quote unquote question mark if you want to nitpick, whether it's injuries, whether it's inconsistency or whatever. But Buehler has been the most consistent guy in the playoffs, which we know the Dodgers value. And I'm with you. Pitching is what it is. Okay, three more, and these ones are easier. Is there a Dodger prospect that you missed on that still haunts you to this day?
Oh God, I mean, yes. I thought, God, this is like remember some guys. Greg Miller I don't know if you were following when he was the thing. Scott Elbert, I thought was going to be really good. I started following prospects when they first picked James Loney.
Okay.
And I don't consider him a miss, but I'm just giving you a timeline. I think maybe 2001-ish. I thought Joel Guzman was going to be
he was a big
star.
shortstop, right?
Like I read Baseball America. I read all these things, and I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I read them, and they all thought he was going to be good. I thought he was going to be incredible. Yeah, I mean those types of guys. I mean that era, there were a lot of pitchers. Chuck Tiffany. I don't know. I'm hoping people are like understand the remember some guys mode and all this. Yeah. All those guys like that were. I thought Scott Elbert was going to be a monster.
Yeah,
and he got hurt. Like, look, that's not But again, pitchers get hurt. You have to factor that in. I thought he was going to be incredible.
Yeah, I recognize about half those names. I mean, even you didn't Loney. You just threw out as a point. He was a fascinating one because he wasn't a miss in that he survived for as long as he did. But I definitely think the ceiling was believed to be far higher than it ever.
I thought the power was going to be there, and it was not.
Yeah, it was definitely not. Okay, favorite Dodger as a fan. As your favorite Dodger in your lifetime as a fan?
Oh man, I've cycled through so many. Probably Hideo Nomo.
Oh, love it.
I literally have This is because we can do video. I have a card in Japanese with him in the case from when he first came over. It's in a sleeve in a case. That's how much I cared as a kid. I would do his motion in the backyard. That was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've got you can't see it, but I've got the Dodgers Rookie of the Year like little poster hologram thing that they did, and there's a big hologram right in the middle, which is Nomo in his motion. So I respect the Hideo Nomo pick there.
There's so many I could name, by the way. Like I'm a huge I loved Matt Kemp. I loved Russell Martin. I mean, he was the heart and soul of that team for a while. There are so many guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to choose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've been lucky to see so much talent that that there is a bevy of options.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there was like that period when you had all those Rookie of the Years like Piazza, Karros, Mondesi, etc. early on, and then it obviously has been fantastic for the last 10 years. There's kind of a middle zone there where it wasn't great. It was like Sean Green and a bunch of nobodies, but it's been over on the whole. On the whole, it's been a good season to be a good season of life to be a Dodger.
The Mike Edwards era was not my favorite.
Not great. Yeah, not great. Okay, last one, 2021 Dodgers. Your prediction for them is what?
I think they run it back. Let's have some confidence. I think they're the best here, but here's the reason for that. Like, look, the odds of any one team winning the World Series, like someone has to win it. So there's that. They're the best team in baseball. Yeah. And it's as much as like it's fun to game out scenarios and they do have weaknesses and every team does and all of that. Picking against the best team in baseball and what, in my opinion, is obviously the best team in baseball, that's stupid, and we shouldn't do it. Yeah. And so, I'm going to pick them. Look, do I think it's over 50%? No, not at all. But I think you pick the best team in baseball, and it's okay to have some confidence in that. I also think some of the pressure is off, right? Like it's and at the same time, like there's a little bit of a we know people aren't going to fully respect the 60-game season thing. Yeah. So there's a little bit of an edge there too, if you want to get into the mentality games of all of it. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be resting on their laurels, for a full season, or, if we get close to a full season, something like that. Yeah. So I think they'll come back, motivated to prove that it wasn't a 60-game fluke or anything like that. And that they're still going to, even if I'm wrong and Turner isn't there, whatever, I think they're still going to be the best team in baseball. Yeah. And their depth is just incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure thing is interesting just because it's like, does the lack of pressure help them in that maybe the guys can just relax when it comes to crunch time down the stretch versus, some of these guys, how seriously, how motivated will some of the younger guys be, especially when you've got some of those guys that are nearing paydays. Seager doesn't strike me as a guy that is going to be out for himself necessarily, and I don't want to paint anybody with the broad brush, but there are some people out there that you're
it's okay to go out there and hey, listen, if they help themselves, they help the team. So
it's true. Works
for me.
Well, Craig, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us. Is there any where can people find you if they want to find your work, or on Twitter, social media, any of that? Where can people find you at?
Yeah, I'm at Twitter at CD Goldstein. I appreciate the kind words. I always recommend people not follow. I tweet a lot, so it's no offense taken if you don't want to do it. There's also a lot of reality TV in there sometimes. BaseballProspectus.com. I'm the editor-in-chief there. I write when I can, but we have an incredible staff of writers and researchers. Again, we do fantasy, we do prospects. Our prospect lists are rolling out now. So I think the Dodgers are coming in mid-December. Yeah. We average about 3 a week. And we're doing them in alphabetical order this time, which is why they're kind of in the middle. And then just this offseason, we do the annual every year. This is our 2020 version. You can see it's very thick. It's like 600 pages. We normally do about 65 players per team with comments and projections for the next season. We're going to be closer to 50 this year, just because no minor league season means it's harder to get information on the guys lower down or generate a comment worthy of something. So probably closer to 50 players per team. But again, there's an essay with everyone. There's comments on 50 players for every single team. And then we have some broader themed essays, not just ones pertaining to each team as well. It's a great value. It's a really good book. So I'm one of the editors on that as well. So I really think it's a great value. And again, Baseball Prospectus, an annual subscription is under $4 a month. I really think I really think it's an incredible value, even if you're not going to read fantasy or you're not going to read prospects or, whatever it might be. There's a ton of value there.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I encourage people to sign
Absolutely.
up.
And I mean, obviously, sites like that are what fuel many of the blogs and, the things that the average person is reading. They might not be necessarily reading Baseball Prospectus, but the people they are reading are definitely reading Baseball Prospectus and sites like that. And so anything people can do to support folks like yourself is awesome. So, Craig, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks again. And enjoy the rest of your off season, enjoying life as a Dodger World Series champion.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
Have a good one.